So you want to start a Plex server? Well, in this video, I'm not going to show you how to do that. Instead, I'm going to get you on the right path to mastering your own new server and save you some of the headaches I had while I was trying to perfect mine. You can throw a rock down the streets of YouTube and hit 15 videos showing you how to install and set up a Plex server. Plex even has their own video available on their website that I'll link in the description that will walk you through it step by step. In my first video, I explained some reasons why you might prefer Plex over XBMC. So assuming that you are interested in Plex and you either have or you can install it yourself, in this part 2 video, I'm going to go ahead and tell you some things that I figured out along the way when I was starting my own Plex server. Keep in mind that these are largely based off of my personal experiences, and I know for a fact that someone, somewhere, will have a different preference, opinion, or way of doing things. I have put a lot of time into testing and tweaking to find the best methods that work for me, but that still doesn't mean that someone else doesn't have a better way of doing it. Remember, this is your server, so find what works best for you and stick with it. Okay. So to start things off, when you want to have your own Plex server, you have 3 main options. 1, you can install it on your primary computer and it will run in the background. This is the most common setup for an average user and will usually work out just fine. The downside of the setup is that if you use that computer for anything resource demanding, you run the risk of causing any active streams to stutter or buffer. So if you go this route, make sure you have a decent computer and make sure you pay attention to any active streams when you need those resources yourself. For example, if you like to encode video files for YouTube, you may bring any other applications, including Plex, to a crawl while you're doing that. The second route is a NAS, or network attached storage. Now, for this example, I don't mean a home-built beefy system. I'm talking about the basic store-bought ones that are focused entirely on storage and reliability. This option is usually explored by current NAS owners and is quickly abandoned after they learn more about the transcoding requirements. Most of the time these could work if you are using it on the same network and the clients are not requiring any kind of transcoding, they're just direct play. But a standard NAS is not built for media encoding, so if you go this route, you run a high risk of media streams constantly buffering or stuttering. It can kind of be annoying. The third option, and this is my favorite one, a dedicated server. This could sound intimidating, I know, but a dedicated server could be something as simple as an old PC built with spare parts tucked away in a closet somewhere. For example, I have an old Intel Q9550 that can usually give me 3 to 4 streams at once without any issues. By any definition, it's not a powerful machine, but for my requirements, it works out perfectly. So in summary, stay away from generic NAS installations and try to dedicate a separate PC if you can. If not, your main computer probably is going to be your best option. Now that you have your foundation figured out, these next tips will help you along the way. Keep in mind that some of these may not be requirements, but can definitely help improve your overall experience with Plex. We talked a little bit about CPU needs. Let me expand on that just a little bit. When you're planning your server, try to imagine how many active streams you will need going at once. Remember, a stream is any active video file requested by a client. So if one family member is watching a TV show in the room, another one's on their tablet, and you want to watch a movie in your living room, then you need to plan on being able to serve at least 3 streams at once. Plex has come up with a nifty little way of calculating this for you. There's a CPU benchmarking program called Passmark that rates CPUs in marks. Through some testing, Plex has come up with some numbers that you can use to compare your needs to your abilities. So, for a 1080p video file running around 10 megabits per second, you'll need roughly 2,000 marks, and for a 720p or 4 megabit file, you'll need around 1,500 marks. If we're going to follow this number, we can assume a standard stream or 480p would probably take around 1,000 marks if it was running at 1.5 megabits per second. Now that you understand that, how do you use it? Well, start off by going to www.passmark.com. I'll link it in the description. Click on benchmarks from the top menu and scroll down the page a little bit. You're going to look for something called search for your CPU model. Click it. Now you'll see an area to type in your CPU model and find the rating for it. Don't know your model? Well, every system's a little bit different, but for most Windows versions, you can go to your desktop or start menu and right-click on My Computer or My PC, and you should see it listed there. So let's go ahead and go back to my old server. I have a Q9550. If you search for that, you'll find it has a score of just over 4,000 marks. This tells me that I can safely have at least 2 HD streams at one time, or maybe I could get one HD stream and a couple standard ones. For my needs, however, this is plenty. Figure out what your needs are and see if you have the right equipment and setup for it. If not, you might have to do a little bit of shopping. Next up, let's talk about media storage. And I'll start off by saying, anytime you buy a new drive for your server, always thoroughly test it before you rely on it. Do a Google search for hard drive testing software and you'll find tools to do this for you. Losing terabytes of data just because you wanted to save a couple hours is dumb. Unless you're a more advanced user, using things like RAIDs or have backups, try to make this a good habit. Also, you will in no way ever need the speed of an SSD to hold your media files. Cost per gigabyte makes this a terrible option. On the flip side though, stay away from green drives. If you can, green drives are really meant for mass storage, and they're really low cost per gigabyte but are really slow. I made this mistake once of buying 2 green drives and quickly discovered that when I tried to move forward in a video, it would take sometimes 10 to 20 seconds to start playing again. I moved those same files over to higher speed drive and all of a sudden I was back to near instant playbacks. I again put those on a Western Digital Red drive, which are meant for NAS, and the time delay was down to around 2 seconds. So green drives will technically work and are the most affordable means of storage, but if you want a faster response time, just keep this in mind when you're selecting your hard drives. And on the topic of speed, I wouldn't ignore your SSD just yet. After you get Plex installed, you can configure where your Plex media data is stored. This includes things like cover art, descriptions, links to trailers, and more. If you have a secondary SSD in your system or you have a large enough primary SSD, I strongly recommend you configure Plex to not only store its data on that drive, but also to make sure your transcoding directory is on it as well. If you have a large primary SSD and do a standard Plex installation, it's already going to be set up like that, so no worry. If not, point it to a second SSD. It's going to really help you out. Why? Because when you're browsing through your media to find something to watch, having a fast SSD capable of finding the data quickly will give you a smoother experience. If not, you could find yourself waiting a second or two per page for the cover arts to load. This may not seem like a lot of time, but it can really add up. And as for your transcoder folder, well, having that on an SSD just improves your media load and seek times. It will also really come in handy when you get up to 4 or more streams. So how much do you really need? Well, a Plex data folder can get pretty big. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you have 1,500 movies and maybe 50 complete TV series on your hard drive. Your Plex media data folder could be anywhere between 13 to 15 gigabytes. Make sure you plan for this. And as for the transcoder folder, well, you might want to plan for at least a couple of gigabytes worth of usage at any given time. Ethernet. Ethernet is your friend, Wi-Fi is your enemy. Don't get me wrong, Wi-Fi has come a long way and technically would work in a pinch. But trust me when I say this, Wi-Fi can end up being the worst headache you will ever get at your Plex media server. It can cause stuttering, buffering, disconnects, and can lead you on a wild goose chase trying to find a problem on your computer. I don't care if you have to run a cable across your floor and duct tape it down. Just do it. And make sure it's at least 1 gigabit capable. Okay, now that you have your hardware figured out and your storage set up, the first thing you want to do is check your incoming port. So go to your server settings and click on Connect. From there you're going to see if your port is working. If it's not, you may need to set up some port forwarding to give off-network clients access to your media. For more information, just Google Plex port forwarding or see the description. Simply knowing that this is a problem will save you a lot of headaches in the future when you're trying to troubleshoot your issues. Alright, we're almost done. Now all you need to do is add media. But before you do, make sure you understand how to. And I don't mean how to click the Edit Library icon and add a folder. I mean, how do you make sure your media is ready? Well, once you assign a folder that your media is in, Plex will scan that folder and build your library based off of the names and folders that you selected. So if you have movies like The Fast and the Furious, and your file name is tftf.mkv, you'll be forced to manually search and correct this movie after Plex is done scanning. Now scale it up to 1,000 movies, all with their proper names, and you could spend days correcting this issue. I'll link the description showing you proper naming conventions for your media. Save yourself some time and do it right the first time. Last but in no way least, get a Plex Pass. Of course, you're going to want to try Plex out first, but a monthly Plex Pass subscription costs less than, let's say, a coffee at Starbucks every month. And at the time of this video, that's the only way to actually use your Plex on your Xbox or PlayStation 4. Aside from that, you get access to cloud syncing, trailers, camera uploads, and you can watch your media off network on your tablet or your smartphone. It's pretty convenient. You should now be on your way to having a pretty good Plex media server. A lot of these things I had to learn the hard way, so I really hope they help you out. Remember, the Plex community online is a valuable resource to help you through any issues you may come across. Most people really are enthusiastic about their servers and they love helping others. The only dumb question is the one that you don't ask. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, please click like and don't forget to subscribe. Assuming that you like Plex, you're interested, and you either have or you can install it yourself, in this part 2 video, I'm going to but that still doesn't mean that someone else doesn't have a better way of doing what son of a